But when people say, like, for example, when I have high estrogen and I get bloated, you're getting bloated not via estrogen. You're getting bloated via estrogen's modulation of mineralocorticoid receptors. The way to deal with that is we got a lot of questions about diuretics and blood pressure and stuff like that. And a lot of people seem to be wondering, well, it actually comes around estrogen. People are asking, like, if I am not sensitive to gyno, but I have high blood pressure or I am just watery, is it a good idea to take a diuretic or not?
Go do your blood work.
Let's first say one thing. The worst thing for your kidneys is to be dehydrated. That is the worst thing. That is the beginning of all kidney failure, like everywhere. That's how it all begins. So if you are not actually bloated and you think you are, and you go take a diuretic for a year or so, you might be destroying yourself. I just want to mention that. I also want to mention, when I first went to doctors about my blood pressure issues, some doctors will try to put me on Kodiavan. Well, actually, I took Kodiavan in the beginning. That's hydrochlorothiazide with valsartan combined together. The goal there is this. Doctors basically look at you and they try to figure out if you just have constricted blood vessels. And by the way, if that's maybe due to stress, they'll put you a beta blocker also. But then they look at you and they see, are you bloated? And you could have a disease that makes you bloated, but you could also just be a bloated guy naturally. And so those guys, sometimes they put them on a light diuretic. It's a tricky thing to figure out. I would trust a doctor with it. But when people say, like, for example, when I have high estrogen and I get bloated, you're getting bloated not via estrogen. You're getting bloated via estrogen's modulation of mineralocorticoid receptors. The way to deal with that is not really, estrogen is something you want. I would veer to a diuretic instead of killing my estrogen, reducing this antioxidant profile in my body, and the tremendous effects of estrogen for everything, for hair, that Derek cares about, for the heart, for everything.
It's a big trade-off to reduce your estrogen for a little bit of vanity, and crush your lipid profile in the process. And there's no amount of statins or ezetimibe that can favor your lipids right back when you crush your serum estrogen concentrations. I mean, it's very obvious with steroid users, just pre-contest, you crush your estrogen. So, like these diuretics, like you mentioned the valsartan and the hydrochlorothiazide combination, right? It's also a recipe for hyperkalemia.
That's another
potassium levels in the bloodstream. So when I added in the telmisartan, I had to discontinue all indirect potassium or direct potassium sources.
You take so much potassium, though. You do supplement potassium hard.
No, supplement potassium, yeah, but it works highly. It's highly beneficial for bodybuilding, especially if, like, I was always avoiding or have low vegetable intake, right? Yeah. And now I'm eating a ton of vegetables again because I don't want this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease to occur again. So my potassium intake from the vegetables is way higher. So I don't need to supplement with potassium salt on top. But I've always added a little bit of potassium to each meal just to increase performance and help with glycogen storage, right?
Yeah, it's
right. So, but then you take an bivalol, which I take, and telmisartan, which I take, and then if you take another diuretic on top, that's hyperkalemia for sure, because it's the beta blocker that contributes a little bit to hyperkalemia, and then the telmisartan or an A or B contributes to hyperkalemia. So in those cases, you don't want this extra potassium salt, and that's why it's always very difficult to give general recommendations, because all these drug interactions are very poorly studied.
Yeah, and it freaks me out with minoxidil too. Like, I've been considering